Hey everybody, it's Try Hard Tuesday, and boy did the players this week go hard. My mic fell. Um, what I mean with that is they played some pretty long games. Um, Lucky for you though, I guess. I won't make this too long, and I decided that I'm going to record this into two parts, dividing the amount of turns somewhat equally because a couple of players decided to bring stall. You can thank them. Or blame them, but thank me for sitting here with you and guiding you step by step through what you have yet to see. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I covered this game. Yeah, I did. So I won't dwell too much on it. But I like to be comprehensive, and I do always like to give you a holistic approach. So when doing these week recaps, I always like to include all of the games wherever possible. Since last time I totally forgot the predictions, I will include them at the end of the second video, which I may or may not record in one session, depending on how focused and tired I am and trained and all that. So we are starting off with Cuartos or Cuartosa, representing the, if I'm not mistaken, it's the Scooters. And we got Jester on the Tyrants, we got Conflict on the Cryonicles, we got Fear on the... what team was he on? Why couldn't he have his own, his team mascot instead of this? There's the Sharks. Why is my memory so terrible? I know M Dragon is on the Bigs, Siatam is on the Ruiners, Alice is on the Raiders, D4 is on the Wolfpack, so that leaves us with Fear on the... oh man. Oh man. Hang on. I'll tell you right now. The Tigers, of course. How could I forget? So yeah, Cuartos is on the Scooters, and his opponent, Luis Payco, is on the Sharks. All right, so yeah, if you are enjoying this series, I always appreciate feedback, either in the form of a like if you just want to hack that algorithm and help other people reach these videos, or just share comments, because I really like the comments above all else. So here we are. We got Cuartos from the Scooters, who is on the same team as Hyoga, or Hyoga. And I'm going to kind of not hold play too much. So Century Express goes to his Sleep Talker, Raikou, and T-Bolt doesn't deal quite as much as Ice Beam does. Or actually, no, it deals just a bit more. But Lax comes in on the Raikou, typically, and Cuartos will accept the Toxic in exchange for a Flamethrower, which turns out to burn, only 10% chance. Some players actually double edge and then Flamethrower. It kind of maximizes the damage, but in this case, things turned out better, because had he waited a turn, he might not have burned on the following turn. So Cloy coming in. Crunch, in my opinion, does just about the same as Rock Slide, if I'm not mistaken. Don't be fooled by the animation there. There are spikes on Century Express's side there. And Cuartos is going to go for some damage. Not really paying off, but nonetheless, Century Express looks like he has a stall team, and it's kind of a shame that he didn't bring in the T-Tar to at least to scout, because the chances that a Lax would click Earthquake facing a Skarmory is, well, very low. Worst case scenario, it's like Lovely Kiss, and you get the Tar put to sleep, but you still have another Lax check. But now, I don't know, the Skarmory is weakened, and who knows what's in the back. Fori comes in on the sleeping Lax, sets the spikes, and dips. In comes the Tar, and it's Crunch, so it looks to be Pursuit Crunch Roar. But look at all that damage it's already taken over the course of just 16 turns. It's already so weakened. So this Flame Lax is eventually going to be able to break through. We see a Steelix, and it has a really good matchup into this team right now. Zap, Licks. Licks could definitely beat that Tar. So right now, Century Express made a few awkwardish plays, but we'll see if this Fori might be able to spin. He's going to double the Raikou. Fair enough. Doesn't want to take damage. Lax going to set up. Basically, whatever you choose to do, you're going to take damage here. Skarmory goes down. And so all of a sudden, Century Express has no EQ answer. So Licks is kind of strong right now. And he's going to set up with his Curse Lax. Usually we see him use a Sleep Talk Earthquake lead. So it's kind of a fresh change. It makes sense to have a Curse Talk on this team. Bringing in the Gengar on a good turn there from Cuartos. And interestingly enough, since the Tar is so weakened, it's not entirely safe to come in. So he doesn't bring the Tar in on the Gengar out of fear of T-Bolt. In comes Starmie. Starmie may spin, and spins away the spikes. So now there are no spikes on Century Express's side, but there are spikes on Cuartos' side, laid down by his adversary. And bringing in Fori is a little peculiar here. Hopefully you have a tool. And there it is. There's the tool. It's called RNG. He booms on the Lax, but not only does he have spikes set up permanently, but he crit Oko to +2 Lax, which otherwise would have swept in the long run. So pretty nasty. Pretty nasty. He went for a Hail Mary play, and it paid off. He doesn't have Nightmare Me. He doesn't have a bunch of ways to beat it, so he probably didn't even have enough to revenge kill that Lax because the explosion wouldn't have worked. And interestingly enough, Cuartos booms on the Starmie, which I don't know if that was the play to make, honestly. That might be the play that might have been the final nail in the coffin, because we know how this game turns out, but sorry about that. And so we have this whole ordeal where now there's no good electric answer, there's no good Lax answer. So to boom like that, it's kind of scary. And Century Express still has a Tar, there are no spikes, at least not for now. So what do? And we see Sleep Talk Jinx. Sleep Talk Jinx, which was already used against Century Express. And as the typical anime villain would say, that's not going to work on me twice. Because Fear used it already the week before. And it worked wonderfully. But in this case, I don't know if it's warranted. It's not terrible, but it's not great. So Cloy comes in, but Sentry makes a nice double. And the thing is that with this situation right now, T-Bolt is kind of lackluster compared to Thunder, because Thunder can actually 3-hit KO Zap. Of course, it's not impossible to do it with this move, but it's a lot more difficult. And it kind of requires a crit and bad Sleep Talk rolls, which Cuartos doesn't seem to be getting. He's getting good rolls. So it's using up all the PP, and that could end up being a big deal against Jinx in the long run. So Century Express is using up his Hidden Power Ice PP, and that can matter. But yeah, it's dealing under 38, which is the minimum threshold for a clean 3-hit KO after Leftovers recovery. It could, of course, round up in certain cases. Even if the number does pop up and say 38, it might have been rounded up. But yeah, because that's just how it is. So yeah, with a 35, there's no chance in hell, unless he gets a crit, of course, which is probably what he's aiming for. So the whole reason to have T-Bolt over Thunder is because in a scenario where you're actually able to stall your opponent, but Century Express didn't really do that quite well, then you get to make the opponent use up their PP. But instead what's happening here is that Cuartos is barely using any Sleep Talk PPs, just using it every now and then, forcing his opponent to burn a lot of attacking moves. And in fact, he could avoid clicking Sleep Talk at all on some of these occasions, but, not doing that. Probably because you don't want to be crit. Thoughts on Hidden Power? Sorry, I was reading my Discord while someone was asking me about Hidden Power Electric Blastoise and UU, but the whole thing is that right now, Cuartos only has 4 Sleep Talk PP. Yeah, if you stayed till the end, I'll let you know what my opinion is. So, we got no crits so far, so it's kind of unlikely that up until now, not a single crit occurred. Unless I looked away for that 1 second, and it happened there. Yeah, it didn't happen. So it's kind of interesting. Of course, once this Zapdos runs out of Sleep Talk PP, then Tyranitar becomes all the more threatening. Pretty much, it becomes ready to kill something. So Cuartos has to be very careful. And there's a 38% finally, but it's not enough. Because before that, it got an even lower roll with 34. If it were at least 36, this Zapdos would have been dead on rolls alone. But no. It seems like the move is getting stale, just like in Smash or something. It's dealing less and less. There's a 39. But not... So, yeah. Those were all pretty mediocre rolls. Not going to lie. Lax comes in, and bang. Century Express doubling right back out. On a turn where the Zap was put to sleep, he gets a 37. And now now Zapdos has to burn 2 turns and somehow survive on rolls, but gets the Hidden Power. And now he needs rest, otherwise it's over. He gets Thunder. Para? Nope. So now this Zapdos is dead. Or something else, it depends. He chooses the Zap. Goes to Jinx. I suppose you could go to Jinx, but instead of an attempt to keep the Zap alive, that was a possibility. But it didn't go out like that. So it didn't turn out to be that. So Ice Beam Freeze on a Sleep Talk roll and Thaw in the same turn, which is a 0.3% chance of happening. 0.33. Cloy coming in and can easily pull the trigger and boom, but he doesn't do that. So that was a really good turn there, but it's not gonna help all that much. So the Jinx is at least able to retaliate while asleep, but it's not paying off. Speeding things up just a bit. Lax sets up. Gar comes in. Blanks the double edge there, of course, because reasons. And we'll see if it can take down this T-Tar, but it only has Ice Punch, so not really. It doesn't look like it can. So Cuartos is simply going to sack the Cloy. And in hindsight, I might say that the Boom might have been more valuable than the Spikes. God knows. If only he could get a freeze or a Spadef drop of some sort. But no. Raikou comes in. Ice Punch, no freeze. Jinx comes in, takes a T-Bolt. Another T-Bolt. And at this point, Gengar needs to get all the luck in the world. He's going to go for a mean look, and we'll see what happens here. It's really hard that the Gengar survives because it's T-Bolt. And there you go. It's not going to live. It does manage to take down the Raikou, though. And so Century Express takes this game, despite everything that happened. Now, moving on to the next game. This one is a really interesting one. I'm personally quite a fan of it. And I think it's one of these games that I'm willing to come back on to touch on certain aspects relating to how the offense versus stall game is played and what should be done. It's really nice. It could be like a continuation of the How to Stall the Right Way series, even though it was a one-part video. So we got Jester versus Conflict. Really interesting game. So starting off, we have Zap versus Raikou. Now, Raikou, of course, quote-unquote, beats Zapdos, but one should be aware of the fact that Zapdos could willingly stay in on the Raikou and attempt to paralyze it either through Thunder or just by using Thunder Wave, if it's conducive to a game plan. Instead, Jester switches out, which is also fine. Goes to the Lax. Now, taking a double edge isn't always something I recommend because, as you can see, 51% means that a crit could certainly OHKO the Raikou. Zapdos is just bulky enough to be able to take a double edge and crit and perhaps even survive. But Raikou, not necessarily. So it's kind of scary sometimes. But he goes for the damage, and that makes sense. You know, the Snorlax already took one Thunder, and dealing a second one could work as a get off me, you know, playing offensively to carry out a defensive game plan. So now this Lax is, of course, going to use Rest, and there aren't any spikes on Conflict side of the field, so this Raikou is relatively safe to come back. We did see Protect, and that's actually a very unique move from Forretress. It's not seen every day. It's not unheard of. But what makes it so good is the fact that you get to, of course, scout, waste your opponent's PP, all that good shit. But it's really nice because in some ways you can even stall out a Curse EQ Lax until eventually you force it to use Rest. Because if you also have Toxic, because most Protect Forretress also have Toxic, then it works as a pseudo a soft check to Curse EQ Lax, as long as it doesn't get crit and all that stuff. So that's nice. The Protect is also good just for helping certain mons, um, helping, like, assisting in taking certain threats down, maybe carrying out your Spike's war game plan. So, yeah. Lick's coming in. Lick's looking like a good answer, of course. Conflict doesn't need to keep his Fori in, so he's just gonna go straight to Umbreon and Charm. So now this Steelix has lowered attack. It's not nearly as threatening. Jester's gonna want to do something about it. Goes to the Zap. Of course, you could use Roar as a tool of just scouting the opponent's team, but it's pretty clear now that Conflict has a stall team. With Raikou, Fori, Umbreon, and Skarmory, you have revealed the essentials. So Umbreon is your it's a sort of workaround for not having your typical Flamelax checks, which are usually something along the lines of T-Tar or Golem or Misdreavus. One uses Pursuit to trap ghosts. One is a spinner, and the other one's a spin blocker. So in some way, they all help with the Spikes game. But Umbreon also uses Pursuit trapping, mostly on stall. Especially after Mean Look being banned, there's no way around it. It's not so great because it doesn't always beat the Umbreon, the Lax. But so far, so good for Conflict. Gets a nice little Toxic there, so puts the Zapdos on a timer. We can only hope for Jester that the Zapdos isn't a Whirlwind and is in fact a Rest Talk, but we'll see. So it gets another Toxic, and that's one of the beauties of Stall, having just the ability to control the pace of the game through use of the progressive burn damage. Burn damage like it were a Yu-Gi-Oh game. Not actual burn, not like the. So Zap comes in, Umbreon comes in. We haven't seen what moves Umbreon has, but it's likely to have Pursuit. Conflict is going to go, interestingly enough, to his Raikou, but doubles immediately to the Skarm, as it's the best check right now. We haven't quite seen if it's Flame, so Conflict is going to double another time. See, that's the kinds of plays I'm talking about. You scout. So worst case scenario, Snorlax takes like an Earthquake from Jester's Snorlax, or a Lovely Kiss, or a Thunder, or a Flamethrower. Flamethrower isn't really a bad thing. So to do that means that you preserve your team. Yeah, there is like that small chance that maybe it's Boom, and then you lose your Lax instead of losing your Skarm. But then all that means is that there's something in the back that wants Skarm out of the way, and you manage to keep it alive. And that's kind of why I don't love the whole stay in on this mon, or making risky plays like in the Sietam Hyoga game or in the Century Express game that we just saw. In Stall, it's not beneficial because you're not necessarily doing damage, and you're doing risky things for information. So we see Lovely Kiss on that Lax, putting that Cloyster out of commission right away. So now Jester has no spikes and no means with which to negotiate his chance at victory. I'm speaking very verbose today because I was writing a little bit on my dissertation, and so blame it on that. Sorry. Earthquake deals a lot. Starmie is a great partner for Umbreon because it's a Machamp check, and there's a realistic chance that Jester has a Machamp in the back. So +1 EQ on that turn that we saw earlier. Deals a lot. It doesn't even need to be at +1 to Oko the Starmie. If you really want a fun fact, +1 EQ, +1 explosion, Oko's Suicune. But yeah. But a +1 EQ crit could Oko Starmie, for example. So, yeah. Starmie's certainly more valuable in the Machamp matchup. So, yeah. Goes for a recover, which is probably meant to attempt to scout, because his Skarmory is particularly low, so he doesn't want to come in on anything weird here. Of course, you could go to Umbreon, but he feels safe, and it turns out that the Lax is, in fact, an Earthquake Lax, which is kind of mediocre into stall. So Licks plus Sleep Talk EQ Lax, no setup whatsoever. Kind of means that Skarmory and Umbreon can have a field trip here. And that really helps. That really benefits the team a lot. So if you're a Jester fan, you hope, right, that he has Gengar, something that can really pressure, stall a Nidoking. Interestingly enough, in these 4 weeks, we've only seen 2 Nidokings, which is like, what? That's... it beats me why they didn't bring it. But there wasn't all that much stall up until now anyways. So Skarm coming in. And as you can see, he's not afraid whatsoever. Doesn't have to even bring in Fori or Umbreon. Can bring Umbreon, but doesn't have to. So the Jester obviously wants to burn the turns here. If he chooses to switch out, he's going to take double the damage from Pursuit. So he's kind of hard-pressed to do that. Conflict is going to chip it down. Use Charm so that the boom isn't really a big deal. And sure, he gets spikes, but he's taken about half HP. And now about 2/3. And you saw, Cloyster is kind of frail. I suppose he could have Toxic, but that also would have worsened the scenario for him. So Conflict being diligent as ever. He knows that he can kind of afford losing this Umbreon if it means winning the Spikes War. If it means guaranteeing that Starmie can spin away those spikes and not have to sacrifice itself. Or Fori, for instance. Fori could have spin. Could go for a Protect here. So far we've only seen Jester go back and forth between 4 Mons, and we haven't seen any Whirlwinds. So it's not like Jester couldn't have revealed something else or was phased out or something. He's getting chipped down. And his Steelix might not live long enough to actually check this Lax forever. The Lax is put on a timer. And there we see Gengar coming in on an HP Fire. So that's a good turn for Jester. About time, I'd say. But the Umbreon is looking to come in and trap that Gar. And Dynamic misses. Misses again. That's a 25% chance of missing after 2 attempts. And there's the 3rd attempt. It lands on the 3rd attempt, but doesn't nearly do as much. And look at how much Pursuit does in exchange. Exactly half. So that Gar isn't too happy about that whole interaction. And Raikou doesn't give a fuck. In fact, he has a Thunder, a meaty-ass Thunder that can just bop the Zapdos. He can't stay in. He's it's risky for him to bring in Licks. There's no... Unfortunately for Jester, there isn't really enough in his arsenal that he can use to break through. And this Lix is already at a percentage where it can boom. He's going to preserve it. And Conflict brings in his 4E, so uses Toxic. Doesn't even matter at this point. He can kind of stall. Doesn't have spin. It's just Spikes, Protect, Hidden Power, and Toxic. The cool thing, I'll explain the next time 4E is in, of course, but yeah. Starmie. And there's sub. Is it Nightmare? No, it's not. Of course it's not. It's Spin. Because if the Zapdos misses, then Starmie gets the free spin. Basically. And now he's kind of just forcing Jester to use up that Thunder PP. There's a Para. Somewhat of a good turn. Roar. Just to make the Lix last a little longer. Another Roar there. Umbreon. Umbreon can use Pursuit, can use Charm. He's going to use Charm. And 4E is going to come in. Hidden Power Fire threatens this Lix out. But still dangerously low. Lax comes in. And so does Conflict's Lax. Which uses Rest. So we've revealed all of the moves. Umbreon is probably Charm, Pursuit, Rest, Sleep Talk, but it could also be Charm, Pursuit, Rest, Toxic. Probably not. Probably just Rest Talk. Drumlax would have been very good into this. Drumlax on Jester's team, but that's kind of weird. What's more to say? Sleep Talk can't get past this 4E, much less the Umbreon and the Skarmory together. Lix is dangerously low. Gengar gets Pursuit trapped. Can't even put the Umbreon to sleep. Starmie outspeeds the Gengar. And Cloyster is low. It's just a terrible matchup all around. And now Conflict can threaten with Toxic, of course, or even Hidden Power Fire. Raikou just comes in, doesn't care. Could not give two shits about Zapdos' Hidden Power. It could be Hidden Power Ground for all he cared. It could be that famous Mud Slap Zapdos that griefs the whole Gen 2 ladder. I don't know, if you're that one guy who uses Mud Slap Zapdos on ladder, I don't wish you a happy Valentine's Day. I'll say that much. Umbreon coming in here. And that's the only window of opportunity. Like, if he had crit, there might have been a chance to bring it down. A Para could be nice here. A crit could have been nice as well. Could have helped Gengar. But no. Like, just the efficiency of this game is incredible. This is one of those times where, like, Stall can capitalize. And there, like, Conflict is in no position where he needs to make a risky play. He just goes to Raikou, Thunder. There's a para, so he could stay in if he wants to, but he's not gonna. Now his Lax outspeeds, but he has to burn 2 turns anyways. 2 full paras, but luckily for Jester that doesn't matter. 3 full paras. Okay, that's starting to matter a little bit. And now Conflict sets up. Like, what are you going to do? 4 full paras. My lord. And now Conflict has a huge advantage. Like, what is Jester going to do? Is he going to double out and make something take a +1 double edge? Or is he going to risk getting trapped? Or Lovely Kissed? Probably not Lovely Kiss, but he could boom. He could do that. Gets Lovely Kissed. So, you know. Brings in Umbi. Because what else is Jester going to do? And this Gengar is dead. 50% on the switch out. Has 3% left. Lord, I cannot speak. Like, Conflict only needs Skarmory and Raikou to win, but he has 6 Mons. So sorry, I skipped a turn. That was a double-edged turn there from Conflict. Boom? Nah. Yeah. In comes Lix. Outsped by Fori. Has to switch out. Raikou. Steelix. SpongeBob. Fori. And I know this doesn't sound entertaining, but I actually like this. This is a very nice game. Raikou. The Thunder missed, so it doesn't matter that I skipped that turn. I could have sworn this game lasted a little less, but we're nearing the end here. We're approaching the end, and Starmie comes in. Could spin, but is just going to blow the brains off of that Cloy. And we do see a potential win con, but things just played out so poorly that there's almost no chance in hell that this is going to break through everything. Vaporeon is simply going to let Starmie spin. And so now those spikes are gone. Now Raikou is a free Tiger. Tiger, dog, cat, whatever. Yeah, the licks boomed. I'm sorry about that. Here. I'll let you see it firsthand. So it's sub, which is nice. There's finally a chance that something happens, but Conflict will simply attack, enabling the Raikou to eventually take this out. He doesn't need the Lax to win. He just needs to deal enough damage to this Vaporeon. It's not acid armor. So, yeah, it goes down. And Jester forfeits, but it was a good attempt. So Conflict is undefeated in these 4 weeks, and I can't remember if Fear is undefeated. He may have lost 1 week. So we got the substitute of Raichi versus Fear. Now, I have a couple of things to say before going into this game, and then I will conclude part one. As a spectator, my first reaction to this decision of subbing Raichi out was, this makes absolute no sense. Raichi's a decent player, and this person isn't that great. But then I looked at it. I gave a good look at this game. I even spoke with Fear over this game. And there aren't really any huge executional mistakes. This game was pretty interesting. And it's very interesting to see how good a call Fear made into this player with only one, who at best had 1 week of GSC experience. So, at least tournament-wise. So, I may have said a couple of things on the forums saying that this game was a joke, and I also said I just don't like this game at all, it's bad, or whatever. But it turns out it's not Louis' fault. I mean, let's face it, he's facing one of the best players, so you'll know what I'm talking about in a second. So we got Zap lead versus Zap lead. Now, what do you think could happen? I already spoke about this in the week 1 recap when talking about Fear versus M-Dragon, if I'm not mistaken. And one Zap could aim to paralyze the other one. Now, who exactly was it that innovated so much with atypical Zap leads? Who was it? It was Fear. So he goes for the T-Wave and he paralyzes the Zapdos. So that's not a random ass play. That's not just that's a tell. That's a tell that there's paralysis offense going on. It's a tell that you could get swept by something really nasty, but slow. So a glass cannon. So in comes Lax, and then what? Then what do you do? Do you go to a Steelix? Do you go to a Cloyster? Do you want to set up your spikes? Surely staying in on Snorlax with Zapdos isn't a good idea. So spikes, Louis, we'll call this player Luis. Luis comes in with Cloy, and we see a turn 3 Belly Drum. Uh-oh. What the hell do you do now? Do you boom? Do you toxic? Do you surf? What do you do? Do you lay spikes? There's a lot of things, you could lay spikes. That's not a... Cloyster can live. But there's also another issue at hand here. Like, you can get taken out. Snorlax most likely is going to be return. It could be Body Slam. That's also a plausibility. And you could get full Parrot or whatever the hell. Parrot. The other thing is, if you boom and they blank the boom because it's a Protect Lax, then you're screwed. So he goes for EQ. Basically hitting whatever... he doesn't necessarily go for the biggest damage option, but Fear is covering other options, while Luis is panicking, justifiably, thinking, what the hell do I do, right? So the Earthquake would have OHKO'd most normal resists, like Gengar, T-Tar, I think. So in comes Machamp after a Toxic, which is alright. Interesting. So no attempt at booming. At the very least, this puts it on a timer, but I don't think Toxic is the answer. because when Lax takes something out, then it's not going to take poison damage. It's actually going to get its HP back, even if it is toxic. The timer will increase over time, but it's not going to be taking that damage. As long as it KOs something, you don't take poison damage. So the Machamp misses and gets taken out. And watch as this Lax gains HP rather than losing it. And now it protects. So in this case, it's a little too, it's too little too late. Like if you had boomed here, and I might just have done that, then it would have been kind of, a mess. And I probably would have just forfeited after this. But the Machamp missing the cross chop also kind of sucks. He goes for Roar, and that's fine in my opinion. At first I thought, what a stupid thing to do, but Roar actually sort of works because Lix is able to take a +6 Earthquake. It's the one Mon that can do that isn't immune. Yeah. So we've seen the whole moveset on this Lax. Now would be a good time to boom, right? Protect was revealed. So you could boom. There's another thing I want to talk about. How come Fear didn't boom here? Well, it's more of a concession. If the opponent takes out his Lax by exploding, even after laying spikes, then Fear might have a spinner in the back. I flicked my eye. Ouch. Okay, so in the long run, if you have a paralysis offense team with a drummer, you might even have a second drummer. You might have a Marowak. You might have a Quagsire. You might have something like that. And those teams don't usually rely on spikes. Those traditionally, the traditional paralysis offense teams. So in a scenario where Spikesless offense has to fight Spikes offense, but that one doesn't have spikes, imagine who's going to win. So this is the whole game plan that Fear has carried out, and it's going not good, not great. It's going magnificently. So Lix could even boom here. The Lax has done its work. But instead, I think this is a little teeny tiny execution mistake, but I don't know. There's so much going on that it's hard to blame Luis. I was a bit harsh in my first view of this game. The Roar wasn't great, but what else could you have done? You could have boomed, I guess, yeah. After the Protect, you only have a 50% chance if the opponent even attempts to preserve the Lax. But now in this scenario, there's a Miltank. It can use Heal Bell. This Lax wouldn't have Toxic anymore, and it's willy-nilly. It's all safe. So this Lix could boom here. Doesn't do that. Curse is kind of awkward. I don't know if I respect that. Because at this point, at least you've at least temporarily averted the threat. So you could go to your own Snorlax or Zapdos. I don't know. So Starmie, we're going to proceed with our uncertainty until the picture is made. The puzzle is made completely. Miltank versus Lax. Of course, it's Growl Miltank, so it's going to stall out that Lax, unless it's also a Belly Drum Lax, which is entirely, possible. Lix comes in, and now Fear healed his own Lax of status. The Starmie is definitely in a position to just... It could even die. The Machamp is gone. There would be no reason for Lix to boom on Starmie. So it could attack if it wanted to. But he doesn't. Fear does not do that. He's going to use Protect. We already knew that Zapdos had T-Bolt here, and in comes a Quagsire. So this team is, I think it's a sample team. Oh yeah, I'll talk about the Smeargle in a second. So there's the Quagsire, and this team needs T-Tar. It usually has T-Tar. I don't think there's really room for anything but T-Tar in the back. Um, I'm not really sure if anything else could go there. Golem doesn't really sound like it fits. I don't know. T-Tar just kind of synergizes well with Quagsire, to be honest. Ground and water versus the rock, like with the rock type. So this Zapdos is in deep doo-doo. Because, T-Bolt or Thunder, it absolutely is trivial. It doesn't matter at all. And Hidden Power, even if it's water or ice, it's not going to deal that much. Zapdos barely has a chance at 5-hit KOing Quagsire. So you know what that means? It means this Quagsire gets the belly drum for free. For free 99. And in comes Smeargle, so that's like, okay. What the hell is Smeargle doing, and what's it doing on a team with Cloyster, Machamp, Lax, and all that stuff? Does it have Spore? Maybe that could be a viable move. But he goes for Heal Bell, which is a bit awkward. That was probably the thing that tipped me off the most. What's a Smeargle doing with Heal Bell? I don't know. We'll never know what that Smeargle was. In fact, I think I'll go and ask. So Hidden Power Rock, obviously Oko's the zap there. And Snorlax barely survives. But it's not going to live the next one because it's just slower, and so yeah. Fear wins. Just 6-0s cleanly. Knowing that his opponent, at the very least, was going to be ready for your usual Curse offense, Curse Lack stuff, Cloyster, Licks, those kinds of things. So to be able to prep against something like this would be very unexpected. All right, then. So this is the end of part 1. So I leave 2 more games. The next one's a long one. And, yeah. Most of the next part of the video is going to be about one particular game. And so thanks for watching. I'm going to upload shortly the other video as well. And as a little bonus for those of you that have watched till the end of this part, I have to say that Hidden Power Electric Blastoise is not that bad. I said I was gonna give my opinion on it. That's my opinion. It's not that bad. It's not amazing, but it's not that bad. It might actually be good. But I don't play GSC UU anymore. So what do I know? Alright, stay tuned. And take care.